6 or 7 vehicles, sir.
Far from Washington, off a dirt road near an auto parts supplier.
And it's a Brownsville point of entry, and we're moving to an area that's been identified by the CBP that could benefit from some hardening.
All right, stretch it out more.
This is the front lines in the debate over border security. We're embedded with the U.S. military in Brownsville, Texas, just steps from the port of entry to Mexico.
We're hanging concertina wire, sir, to make sure the border is more secure.
How does this assignment differ from other ones that you've had in the past?
Usually, forces go out and deploy, and we're overseas, but this is home turf.
About 5,900 troops have been deployed to the southern border in advance of what's being called the caravan. Thousands of Central American migrants seeking asylum in the U.S.
I don't care what the fake media says, that's an invasion of our country.
We traveled here to Brownsville, Texas, to see if the fear and rhetoric out of the White House matched the experience on the ground.
We've become a political football is what's really happened. When you hear of a group of 2,000 or 1,000 people, that seems like a lot of people.
They're not coming to hurt us. They're coming for a better life.
Just this weekend, after months of rising tension over the caravan moving north, chaos erupting in another border town, Tijuana, just south of San Diego. Several hundred Central American migrants protesting at the border, at first clashing with Mexican police in riot gear, and then skirting those pickup trucks and barriers right into the maze of canals near the San Isidro border terminal. Dozens of them trying to breach the border fence. Behind those coils of concertina wire, heavily armed U.S. Border Patrol agents unleashing a wall of tear gas. Many hundreds beating a frantic retreat. Among those engulfed, mothers clutching children. Like this woman, who we later tracked down in a tent camp. Maria Meza was fleeing Honduras with 5 children.
Bueno, yo en el momento sentí miedo y creía que me iba a morir con ellos. Eso fue lo que yo sentí. Y salí a toda carrera, entonces yo dije ya.
This weekend's violence coming after repeated threats by President Trump to close the border with Mexico. The president has repeatedly called the migrants a threat and a national emergency.
And they got a lot of rough people in those caravans. They are not angels. They are not. Take your camera, go into the middle, and search.
So we did, taking our cameras right inside that caravan. What we found were many desperate families. Women like Blanca, who I met marching with her 3 children.
For Blanca, there is a serious concern that the gangs who killed her husband are going to come back for her family and the rest of them.
But as this group made its way north, and just weeks before the midterm election, the administration deployed those troops, 1,000 of them right here in Brownsville, unsettling many here in the community.
This militarization of our section of the border has been going over the past number of years, but ramped up precisely under the new administration.
Mike Seifert has lived in this area for nearly 30 years.
You have them practicing riot control on the bridge. We never see that. And then you have barbed concertina wire laid out all over the place. It looks like we're at war.
And it's not just military here. Emboldened in part by President Trump's sharp tone on immigration, some have taken it upon themselves to help protect the border.
Hey, how are you doing?
All right, how are you?
I'm Jake. So what were you up to?
Just checking out different areas.
Yeah.
Because we're running out of time. The caravan's almost here.
Shannon McGauley is the founder of the Texas Minutemen, a militia group he says observes and reports to law enforcement and Border Patrol.
Tell me about where we are right now, and is this a vulnerable area?
Yes, there's an 8-mile stretch here to the ocean that's not really patrolled very well at all. And from when I talk to the locals, they say a lot of activity happens at night in reference to drugs.
He says up to 150 volunteers from across the country are heading to meet him with ATVs, thermal imaging, and armed with weapons.
Will your team be armed?
It's Texas.
So yes.
But it's Texas.
When people say, they've seen the caravan, it's a lot of women and children, people desperately fleeing their countries because of violence.
It's a Trojan horse.
Explain that.
There are people hiding within the women and children. Besides, if you're a real mother, you wouldn't put your kids facing razor wire. This is the United States. It belongs to us.
I don't need defense from people who are partly dehydrated and who have their 3-year-old on their shoulders and who are probably sick and in shock from what violence they're fleeing. I don't need to be protected from them.
Alyssa Philippone is a Texas native who has lived and worked in Brownsville for the last 17 years. To her, the rhetoric out of Washington is just that, words, not her reality.
They're coming for a better life, a place with running water, a place where they don't have to fear the police, a place where when their daughter gets raped, they can actually seek some justice, a place where their son doesn't get kidnapped to join a cartel. These are some medicines, ibuprofen and so forth, that was donated.
She's part of a local group of residents who've responded to the migrant crisis by volunteering their time, providing aid and assistance to asylum seekers.
It's also about that, about restoring a little bit of dignity.
A few blocks away, we meet Sergio Cordova and Mike Benavides, two other Brownsville locals.
And so we were walking around this area just thinking, why don't we start a kitchen there and be able to feed.
Inside is another Brownsville volunteer, Brendan Tucker.
No, she helps me out like buying things in Mexico.
Making meals for migrants stuck at the Mexican side of the border.
So what do we got here?
This is honey garlic chicken, bacon potatoes, and we got zucchini with corn and French style green beans. Got 27 people on the new bridge and 8 on the old bridge. So I cooked 40 pounds of chicken. If there's any extras, always better to make more than not enough. It's a pretty good system. It's getting more organized every day. Is that it? We don't have anything else to take? It feels so light. We took everything yesterday.
We are with Sergio and his team. They have the dinner packed up, and then we are currently crossing over from Brownsville over to Mexico via the port of entry.
This small tent city has become a temporary home for migrants waiting to cross at a legal port of entry to claim asylum. About 20 people are at this bridge, placed on a waiting list of sorts, only a handful allowed through each day, part of a series of changes that some say encourage illegal crossings and is meant to deter people from seeking asylum.
I've lived here all my life, so I've never seen people living on the bridge, ever. So this is something new within this year.
Just knowing that these asylum seekers are being received like this, the way that they should. They're being received in an American way, you know, with open arms. That's what America's all about. It always has been.
The range extends all the way to the river.
But for another Brownsville resident, Gilbert Garza, it's not so black and white.
When you have 1,000 people trying to come into any area, it's definitely something that will raise eyebrows and concerns on what's going to happen.
Garza manages a gun range here in town and says his clientele is divided on the issue of immigration.
Are you glad the military?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you have some kind of uniformed officer in any environment, it always makes for somewhat of a more peaceful resolution.
While he believes securing our borders is important, he understands why people want to come here.
The United States is the best country in the world. I mean, we already know that. That's why we're here. We want productive people in society to come to the United States. As long as they go to the right channels, I'm not opposed to people like that at all.
Buenos dias.
And when we met back up with Sergio and Mike, they took us to meet some of the people who had left everything behind to come here for a better life. Greeting newcomers released from a detention center station who were legally waiting to have their asylum claims heard.
The bus will drop them off here, and then as they come in, we ask if they have confirmation numbers for the bus, and then we'll line them up here.
¿Cómo se llama esta estación?
It's the Estación de Bus de Brownsville. Served in the Army for 8 years. I went to Desert Storm. You know, if I believe in something, I defend it. I go for it. I believe in America. I always have.
And to Mike and Sergio, welcoming those in need is the American way.
They're coming from Honduras, some groups. Right now they're getting some phone call. They don't have their confirmation number to get a bus ticket, so they're just making contact.
Wilmer told us he fled Honduras with his pregnant wife after several of his relatives were killed by gangs, and he himself receives death threats.
Entre la emoción y el miedo, me fui.
As he told us his story, the weight of it all seeming to overwhelm.
Lo siento.
This is a crisis. It's an international crisis, and it's happening in our backyard. So I'm giving all that I have to it.
Next here, Hairspray star Amanda Bynes.